Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for coming in on a Sunday afternoon. We're very thrilled to have you here, and I'm honored to have two very distinguished people with us today. I will take a moment to read out their official bios. We have Jonathan Jones, who is an art critic based in London. He writes for The Guardian. And we have Waqas Khan, a very, very prolific and driven Pakistani artist, one of the most popular and talked about of our generation. Jonathan Jones is an art critic who writes for The Guardian since 1999. He studied at Cambridge University and lives and works in London. Jones was on the Turner Prize jury in 2009 and was also a judge for the BP Portrait Award. He was series consultant for the BBC documentary Civilizations and has also appeared in the BBC television series Private Life of a Masterpiece. Jones is the author of notable books of art history, some of which are The Lost Battles, Leonardo, Michelangelo, and the Artistic Duel That Defined the Renaissance. He's also written a book on Tracy Emin. Other books include Sensations, The Story of British Art from Hogarth to Banksy, The Loves of the Artists, Art and Passion in the Renaissance. His latest book, published this spring, is the first biography of the 17th century female artist Artemisia Gentileschi. Waqas Khan is a Pakistani artist living and working in Lahore. His most recent group shows include Double Think, Double Vision at Pera Museum in Istanbul, Turkey, Decor, curated by Tino Segal, Dorothy von Hantelmann, and Asad Raza at the Foundation Bogosian Villa M. Payne in Brussels, Belgium, Between Structure and Matter, curated by Murtaza Wali at Icon Gallery, New York, Dhaka Art Summit, curated by Diana Campbell, Betancourt in Dhaka, Bangladesh, and Neda Timer's Dice Ella, curated by Rosa Martinez at the Museo Nacional de Escultura in Valladolid, Spain. And also the most recent in Musac, Leon, Spain, which is called The Description of the World. In 2013, he was shortlisted for the prestigious Jamil Art Prize at the V&A, and is also the finalist for the Lowy Craft Prize. Waqas Khan's works are part of prestigious public collections such as the British Museum, the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, the Deutsche Bank, Frankfurt, Germany, the Kiran Nadar Museum of Art in India, and the Devi Art Foundation, both in New Delhi, India. His upcoming projects are at the Arco Madrid at the end of February, Art Dubai in March, and Art Basel. Thank you so much for having, for coming to this panel. So Jonathan, I'll ask my first question to you. And I've been reading some of your very well-written articles in Waqas, and this quote really, really fascinated me. Let's begin with this. You talked about how an artist very rarely comes that radiates purpose and profundity, who makes you suddenly aware once more of why you got involved with all this art nonsense in the first place. And you've had similar experiences with Jackson Pollock, you said, and one work of Leonardo da Vinci. And you go on record saying that it wasn't, his meticulous kind of precision, and it wasn't his kind of arduous labor that went to his work. You really were more fascinated by his soft suggestiveness, and how it kind of, his unmistakable intellectual grandeur, and also that his work harmonized the mind and the world, the self and the other, and the body and the cosmos. So thinking of, generally artists and their work, there are kind of three things that make you curious. The artist itself and how they talk about the work, the context that drives the work, and maybe just the work independent of any of its context, as just the power of the spectacle. So how do you kind of take Waqas Khan's work?
Okay, well, I think the reason I'm here is that I think... Okay, sorry. The reason I'm here is that I think Waqas Khan is really one of the most exciting artists on the planet at the moment. For me, he's just an exceptional artist. Extraordinary, and it's absolutely true, the kind of artist who makes me realise why I'm bothering spending so much time writing about art. And it's easy to feel that about artists, of the past. There are, I mean, Leonardo da Vinci, Jackson Pollock, who you mentioned, but to actually to see the work of a young artist today who makes you feel the same way. I do feel the same thrill that I felt the first time I saw Jackson Pollock's paintings, Mark Rothko's paintings, great abstract art, and art that's made really from the soul, from the inside, work that is kind of driven. The fact that the work that I think the work that he puts into each piece, the time he spends drawing, the fact that everything is done with these little marks, but that adds up to something sometimes huge, and that the effect, and then the intricate effects that are created, these sort of soft, sensual, and yet very ethereal waves and undulations of colour and dots, which really draws you in. But the point about that work, I feel, is it's not that he's worked hard, give him a prize for working hard. It's not. It's more the true meaning of craft, really. That in the work of doing it, the process of doing it, you feel his so much of himself has got into this. Such a deep and soulful and patient connection passion has gone into it, into the work, and that communicates. The humanity of it communicates, just as it does if I'm looking at a Leonardo da Vinci drawing or the tiles of the Alhambra, and I feel, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful, which again is something that's not. There's not enough beauty in today's art. We think about art today often in terms of politics, in terms of content. That it's about this, it's about that. We've got to make it's a protest or whatever. Here's a guy who's making beautiful art, and not beautiful in a sort of pretty way, although it is very pretty, but beautiful in a way that is awe-inspiring and really sort of electrifies me, and has the. I feel it's art that can change your life. I think that's the other thing about it. There's something about this art that you spend time with it, you feel better for it, you feel uplifted, you feel transported by it. So those are some of the reasons that I like, that I really think that he's one of the great artists of today.
Yeah. Okay. So these particle-esque units that kind of come in sync and they create this so-called magical sensation and this magnanimous totality, as you say, and this is kind of very sensual quality to his work. It brings about almost loss of vernacular, it almost becomes contentless, and there is like a universality to the work. What do you have to say about that? There's really it's devoid of national kind of crutches. It's not about something. How do you comment on that?
Well, abstract art. The abstract art that's most compelling. I mean, I would describe it as I would describe it as abstract art. But it's not about nothing. It's clearly not about nothing. It's about lots of things, and it's clearly about there's an obvious spiritual content to it. There's clearly without knowing anything about the artist, you feel that to have created giant books in hours and hours, days and weeks and months of solitary work, clearly it's a kind of spiritual quest going on. There's something important about what he wants to say, and that's actually the difference for me between abstract art that's just a decoration or that is pretentious, and great abstract art. When you look at a painting by Mark Rothko, you know that it's about something. You might not be able to put into words what it's about, but you feel it, and that's true with Jackson Pollock, the abstract expressionists. Cy Twombly. These are the modern artists that I most sort of, revere. And it's the same with Waqas. If you knew nothing about him, as it happens, I first encountered his work in the Jamil Prize at the V&A, which is a prize for Islamic art, and so it was put in a context where it was very much put in the context that this was work in an Islamic tradition, and that he was using techniques of miniaturism that could go back to the Mughal court, or medieval Persia, really. And so there was that, but as I've got to know him more and looked at his work more, I feel that is an important context, but by no means the only context. As it happens, I think I have a kind of I find Islamic art, incredibly compelling and beautiful too. So that's for me an added bonus. But it's not. I definitely think. Yes, his work transcends context. It's universal. Yes, I think I don't see how anybody could not go close to one of these drawings and be sucked in. And that's all I try to do when I write about it. I'm trying to say, go and see this stuff. It's really something you want to experience because it gives the mind, it gives you the intellectual satisfaction of being very precise. But then that leads you into realms of imagination and suggestiveness, which are almost infinite. And there's a cosmic dimension to it.
Okay, so this talk...
very cosmic, it's again cosmic art, So.
I do feel that this talk would do one of the two, from after this ends. Maybe it'll just add to the mystique of what Waqas Khan's work is about, or it kind of will give us an insight into the real deal of, his contemporary relevance and, his heightened success. My question would be now to Waqas. I know him from, now many, many years, know him from college days. Waqas, you're a person who heavily relies on your instincts, and I know you for many, many years. And I also know that many people know this, that you were a struggling student, and you were always found elsewhere, but not in your department. We all know that. And the fact that the moment the day you graduated, someone offered you a show next to this architecture exhibition that was going on. And I think Mrs. Hashmi came in and saw your work, and then Mrs. Hashmi and Asadeh gave you a show at Rohtas. And I also remember you saying that you just packed your bags. You did produce some show after your thesis. You just packed your bags without even taking an appointment with Samira Raja at Canvas Gallery. You just were deciding to go straight to Canvas to get a show, knowing that you didn't get that kind of validation at school time. What really, what made you believe in yourself so much?
Assalamu alaikum ji. First of all, thank you so much for this opportunity to...
We're all very, very proud of you, of course. The kind of global height you've achieved, not many have achieved in your generation. So we're very proud of you. Just really want to know what made you kind of just pack a bag and go to Karachi and get a date for the show.
So I have a story about this. I graduated as a printmaker, so there were two of my teachers, Afshar Malik and Anwar Said. They were super kind with me throughout my time. Like, I was an NCA for, most of the people know that I was an NCA quite some time. So they were super kind with me. So anyway, so what happens that while I was doing my thesis, I just started working with these dots drawing. Like, I started making those dot drawings on the zinc plate. And maybe I'm not able to answer that question in the reference what happened to me, but I just fall in love with that. I was supposed to have a job in Birmingham. One of my family friends used to have an office there, so I was supposed to leave for that. And I didn't go. I was supposed to go there after 3 days. So I packed myself. I said, I'm going to start this thing. Like, there was nothing. I never knew about let me tell you, because I didn't know about the gallery or anything, how this art world works even. So I was clueless, like totally clueless. So the first time when I met Ma'am Salima, by the way, so Ma'am Salima took my jury, yeah. So I showed her my work, this is what I'm doing now. She was like, okay, so Waqas, which year you were in NCA? And I was just keeping this thing, she shouldn't know that because she took my jury, you know what I mean? So she said, so why didn't you work in the college? I was like, it's not about working in the college, I just felt something now. I started working, so coming back to your question, so it just started from a very clean slate. There was no planning. So having a show in Ramadan in Karachi, I never knew that there's Ramadan mein gallery shows nahi karte. So I never knew that. So I just ended up with my bag to this gallerist and I showed the work and she said, okay, put the work on the wall. I just put the work on the wall and she said, who are you? I was like, I'm Waqas. Where are you from? I'm from Lahore. So I don't have dates for 3 years. I said, it's okay, I'll go to some other gallery. And she was like, wait. So you going to another gallery? I was like, yes, I'll go to another gallery because my friend told me there's Chukandi, there's another gallery as well. So, so I was just going for that. So she said to me, okay, so would you be interested in having an exhibition day after tomorrow? Because if it's Ramzan, nobody does an exhibition in Ramzan. So we had an exhibition after 2 days, and she told me there won't be anyone coming for the opening. And apparently that was right. There was only 2 people came for the opening.
Yeah, the Chancellor General for France and Italy. Yeah, 2 people.
Yeah, the 2 people came for the opening. So the journey started from somewhere. It's just like I just ended up in my studio. Like I got a place and I just started working without knowing where I'm heading to. Let me tell you very clearly. There was no planning. There was nothing in my head, okay, this is I'm going to be. And this is what I'm going to achieve or something. Yeah. So the whole story, even meeting him even is story. Even meeting all of still today, like wherever I'm working, there are stories. So I'm meeting people in the reference of this. This is how it started. So I think I answered the question.
Yes. Okay, so your work at your thesis was very different from what your work was that you displayed at the gallery.
Yeah.
And that really you say that it also kind of was a flip in your lifestyle completely.
Oh, yes.
And it kind of gave you a lot of coherence and it converged all your energies into, these little kind of thoughts that you were making that later became some of your very iconic gestures. And many people started, in the West also and here also started giving it all these different contexts. Some people called it modern miniatures, some people call it pointillism, some people call it Islamic art, and some kind of abstracted, illuminated pages. Then people talked about the behaviorism aspect of it. People got, talked about it under the umbrella of Sufism, meditation, liberation, abstraction of Persian miniature. No, I mean, obviously they make sense. There's a lot of theory around your work. And obviously, rightfully so, and it makes total sense. But interestingly, when you started off working, you weren't aware of any of these things.
I still don't.
Okay, so good. So if you're still not aware, what then kind of drives you to work? How do you kind of sustain your practice?
The thing was because I happened to be traveling during my NCA time as well. So I used to travel. I used to go to Europe and England for like 2 months or 3 months. So my idea, because I've been looking at the works of my teachers and all the time. So my idea was just to create a dialogue which I can connect with the world without having the context of them from this part of the world. So there was a little desire I had. Because I wanted to connect with the world it's not about just to connect with the world in a certain reference. Because if I give you an example of this, why I started working, my first book, 2012, Abstraction contained. I'll give you an example with this question because you have to understand I'm looking at the life and my surroundings in a very different way. So they asked me about the critics from Pakistan, okay, because we're publishing your first book, and what do you think, okay, the critics from Pakistan. So I said, who knows me? So the answer was my cook, because he was living with me, and my mother, They were the two critics who was written in that book. So the reference of your question, for me, the dialogue was very important. I wanted to create a dialogue which I can connect with the rest of the world in a language. So that was it. And today, if you look in this audience, even the person who's making the paper, he's sitting there. I can see him. My paper. And the person who frames for me, they are here. So all of them, they are here. So this is my idea of, from the start till now, that I'm working on. So I don't have big stories. I have a very simple story. Like, this is what I do, and I'm learning. So this is what I do.
Okay, thank you. So, okay, talking about stories, Jonathan, tell me, do you think his recognition massively at an international scale is because of his, many people say that it's because of his play on exoticism, or maybe, you see, there's been so much of an overdose of identity and gender and violence in this part of the world that people were probably expecting something more sublime or something more kind of soothing from the East. Do you think that kind of expectation made his popularity more global?
I don't think so. I don't. I sort of understand what you mean. It's it's not that kind of popularity. I think it's popularity with people who respond very strongly to the works of art as art. The thing about when I say, I think I respond to I respond to this art, more than almost any other contemporary art. I mean, Waqas is really one of my heroes. A lot of art today comes in forms, it is surrounded by, video art, photographic art. It's all kind of positional and, a lot contextual and political and about identity and things. And the point about being presented with an abstract matrix of dots which ripple and furl and create strange warping perspectives in space it's first of all it's a visual experience. It's a visual experience and a sensory experience. It's not like a conceptual art work that's presenting you with a statement or something. I think, and it's not easy art. It's not easy art like something. Certainly in Britain, I would think of easy art as something which was figurative and a picture, or something with an obvious kind of content that people can latch onto, or a video that people can sit down and watch as if they were at home watching television. And this doesn't give you those things. Exoticism, I think. Well, I probably is guilty. If anyone's guilty of that, it's probably me. But I don't think so. I think that that it's a genuine one-to-one encounter with Waqas's work. And so I don't think that people like it because it's exotic or because. Well, for the reasons you said, I think it's the quality of it that's extraordinary.
Yeah, absolutely. And you discovered it not even knowing Waqas at that time. You discovered it in a group of very, very well established artists, and you said that was the work that really stood out for you, independent. Yeah. And you talked about this deep sense of time, moving and mysterious.
Yeah.
So do you really think that visual language can be independent of its context? And how important is it how important is it for your eye to be trained to see art?
It's nice if your eye is. Of course, look. It was I don't think it hasn't got context. The first time I saw it, the Jamil Prize, it's for Islamic artists working in Islamic traditions. In all kinds of different ways. There was fashion and all kinds of things in it. And actually, if I'm more honest about reception in Britain anyway, I'd say The trouble is, the fact that putting a kind of Islamic context onto it, say, it doesn't actually make it more accessible to. It doesn't. I wish people were like that. I wish people were sort of exoticist about loving Islamic culture, but that's not really the case. The truth is, people will pay lip service to the exotic, but they don't. If anything, I think it makes them pigeonhole it and say, oh, it's a kind of multicultural thing, and we should respect it. I'm talking about how my compatriots might think, and whereas the point about this is that you really need to just open your heart to it. It's just great art, and that's so so that it has got. I mean, okay, it has got on that level. It has a great political power because it transcends differences. It transcends. It doesn't suppress them. Waqas is clearly somebody who is drawing on various aspects of, I think, Islamic art history and translating it into very free modern art. But Islam invented abstract art in the Middle Ages, and so it's a connection that's there completely. And I think, but the fact that it is so, what is produced out of that is just, it is just so universal. It doesn't matter what you believe or don't believe. Here is art that can give you the kind of exciting spiritual adventure that Mark Rothko can, and that's it's a wonderful thing, and it does break barriers in that sense.
Okay, great. So talking about, is an understanding of space when viewing Waqas's work. Waqas, would you like to talk about your show at the Krinzinger, Vienna, the history, memory, and geometry, where you created kind of this installation where the viewer became the performer, and then also talking about your Khushamdeed text work. How did these two come about?
Can we have image of the Khushamdeed? So I'll start from there.
थोड़ा सा रुकिए आप चलाएंगे एक image कौन ढूंढ रहे हैं?
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
नहीं
पीछे वाला. So I happen to, I've been lucky that I've been invited for, there's a project in Manchester Art Gallery and the Whitworth and Manchester Museum. So the way I work it, I have to visit those spaces first. I travel most of the time even I'm exhibiting at the same gallery or same space, but I have to be in that space again. So while I was walking in those streets, so I was looking at, because as most of you aware of that, the museum has a taxi stands in front of them. So most of the pickup and drop off happens in front of the museum. So because my hotel was exactly in front of the museum. Okay, so I was looking at those people because they're coming at the 8 in the morning and they were going back on 5 in the evening, and there was a mega structures lying there. And they were not paying attention to those structures even. So they're just walking by. So I'm not talking about only South Asian community, I'm talking about everybody who can understand, like this word Khushamdeed. So I've spoken with my curator, okay, let's put a word outside these buildings called Khushamdeed. Simple. And then we had a meeting with Nick Merriman, so he said, no, we're not putting only on one museum. We're going to put on 3. So the Khushamdeed got placed on Whitworth, then it got placed on Manchester Museum. So recently, I had a talk in New York with the new director of Lister Hudson. And he told me now there's the same amount, same number of the people of other communities coming into the museum as like other people. So actually people can relate with this piece. So now we have other people are coming in, the people who cannot relate with these buildings basically. So that was a little word came to me, I just put it up on. Okay, so that was the Khushamdeed.
Okay, the other one, the Vienna one?
Yeah, the Vienna one is, can I have the slides of? So there's another exhibition I had in Vienna in 2018, and it's called History, Memory, or Geometry. So the idea was because as a viewer, all of us wanted to go to the exhibition and we wanted to see something. We wanted to have inquiry, okay, we're going to see something in the exhibition. So I started working with the white on white. There's no image. So because there is image, because I started working on the white on white, it's like a very minimalistic drawings. I started making those drawings. So this gallery has 5 halls. This is the first hall. Soon you enter in this space, you enter this space and you look at there's nothing, but there's like only carved pieces inside, but there are works inside. So as soon you come out from this space, can it go next? Next, please. Now, the slide is it's not working in order. Oh, you're missing my whole charm. This one. Yeah, sorry. So as soon you come out from that white room, so I created this acrylic glass sculpture piece, and with the help of there's a friend of mine, Faraz and Khurram. So they helped me to make this structure here in Lahore. So we made these drawings, and we just put the drawings outside. So as soon as you enter, we helped with the architect, we designed this way. As soon as you enter in the space, in the 9th centimeter, your image disappears. And from there, you move to the black on black room, the other room. There was a black on black. So then there was a 4th room, there was like my original works. The first image you're going to see is the last room. So when you enter in the last room, you see the last image. You're like, oh, there is something in the first hall. You know, there's white and white, there is something. So actually, I put the viewer as a performer. Because in white and white, this is your certain retina. Your retina can see white and white in a certain angle. So as soon you come into the sculpture piece, so your certain movement, you can see yourself, because you look at white and white, you look at the white and white in a certain way because it disappears, the image disappears. But as soon as you come to the sculpture room, you put yourself there, the first thing you see is yourself. As slowly you move, your image disappears. It's just like an omnipresence of the image. This is how we see it. So I call it as a big title called History, Memory, or Geometry, because every time there's like a certain historical context about my work, so I just call it History, Memory, or Geometry. That's all.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Waqas, all this kind of understanding you've developed over these years.
Yeah.
You're a very, very kind of keen observer, and you learn a lot from the people you interact with. And clearly, you took more time graduating from the National College of Arts. And I remember this is your
This has to be important.
No. I'm just saying that I remember you. This is your first public talk. This is your very first public talk in Pakistan, and it's a very, very important one. You did come to the National College of Arts 2 years ago, and you said that I can dance in front of the whole world, but I'm still scared of my professors at NCA.
And still I'm here.
Yeah. So how do you? What role do you think? What role do you think the institution played for you?
And apparently, I've been very lucky. Yeah, because I had this teacher. Like they let me, okay, do whatever. Just do it. Just finish it. Just finish it. You need to finish the work.
No, but I'm sure you were also absorbing kind of other things throughout all these years.
Because in my NCA time, I was not only, mostly I was in other departments like you mentioned before, clearly. So I was working with architects. I was working with they were still. I think mostly people are here architects. I think so. They're like my class fellows. So I was doing stage performances as well at the same time while I was in school. So actually for me, NCA, please understand, the NCA was not, okay, coming from the background of Akhtarabad, small town, Ala Talim ke liye Lahore mein aaya, civil line mein, and from that school, a cafeteria guy told me about NCA, and I jumped in NCA. And in 3 years, so applying 3 years every year to get inside NCA. So while I was there, I was doing everything, but not art. So that was true.
Okay. Jonathan, how important?
Yeah, this is me. I'm sorry.
How important is it, in your opinion, for an artist to be aware of the contexts that drive the work, or be aware of the kind of creative processes, and also the kind of points of departure and the points of convergence? You see, the art critics kind of always look at it in different perspectives. How important is it for the artist himself or herself to realize that? Because Waqas Khan clearly claims that he just works.
Yeah.
And he's kind of devoid of all the context.
Well, I think
that's really hard. Working is really hard.
I think that's true. I mean, I've been following him for a while, and I talked to him a lot. well, it's literally true. You can see the works. You can see how much work goes in. They're not. You know, he's physically creating these works, and you know that not many artists today actually do that, not to that degree. And even if they, you know. You know, even famous painters might have assistants doing. You know, I mean, I know that back in the days when Chris Ofili was sort of winning the Turner Prize and things, he definitely had an assistant to do a lot of the dots on his paintings and things. It's you know, not all big artists are like that, but the fact is that Waqas actually really is doing physical work, which takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of concentration. In that sense, he is like, you know, the miniaturist of Lahore.
I'm a printmaker.
Yeah. But, you know, there's a kind of intensity about that. So just the fact, I suppose what can free the artist from those concerns about context and those kinds of critical discourses or political language or whatever, actual physical work can actually free you from that, because you're thinking about, well, you know, putting the dots on the paper. And I think, having said that, I think that obviously the work translates. I mean, you've been able to. It's a mixture of different languages. There's things which come from, I think, from craft traditions, but also obviously an understanding of the minimalist, the 20th and 21st century kind of minimalism, and space. This thing about understanding space as well, architectural space. It's true about the black room in that show in Rihanna, and that you as a viewer, you are made very aware of yourself, but you know you're kind of become a participant in walking, in moving through space. The drawings, actually, I mean, the other thing about Waqas' work is it's evolving. I mean, at the Frieze Art Fair in London in October, you showed your first sort of work on canvas.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. It was a huge black canvas. For me, that was really thrilling, because I suppose, you know, I've got this idea of like an abstract painter, and here was a big black abstract painting, seemed to be almost empty, but you see this blackness, you walk towards it, and then you see all the white dots, which form a kind of stellar explosion at the heart of it. So it's like almost like a painting of the Big Bang or something, you know, the cosmos. And so there are lots of course we all bring our own contexts. I mean, I'm doing that constantly, you know, and so I could see a scientific context to it as well as a sort of spiritual context.
Yeah, and then you also say that there's nothing rigid about that self-imposed, self-invented discipline. Chance and accident are as visible in these organically disordered works as they are in life itself. And it's interesting that, you know, you, Waqas, work with so much sincerity, and Jonathan, you are very independently kind of critiquing work with as much sincerity. So all this kind of babble around the work, and it seems kind of irrelevant, what people talk about in the kind of context they place it in. You also talk about his abstraction, saying that the best abstraction always has an inner order. This is what makes abstract art so mysterious. To matter, it must express an inner fire. His fire flows from his heart to his pen to my innermost being. So I thought that sentence really stood out for me. That's the way you kind of feel for his work.
I couldn't put it better myself, really.
Well, these are your words. There are many students sitting in this audience. What, Waqas, anyone could answer this question. I would like both of you to, maybe. What would you like to say to the students who are many of them very frequently are kind of harnessing their instinctive abilities or using meditative acts as a form of mark making. Sometimes they're discouraged, sometimes they're encouraged, but what would you say to them? Because many people have a tendency, especially at the undergraduate level, to be taking on that course, creative course.
That's a tough question. I can share my experience. That's all I can share. I think whatever you do, I remember Zal Sahab ki ek line thi. I was in New York with him. We were doing this a theater called Anarkali. So in third year, while the time I was not even, I was doing other things and stuff. He said it like we were sitting together and he said it, Waqas, तुम क्या करते हो? मैंने कहा जी मैं फाइन आर्ट्स का स्टूडेंट हूँ. तो उन्होंने बड़े मजे से बोला कि अगर एक नंबर का आर्टिस्ट ना बने तो एक नंबर का जूते बेचने वाला बन जाए. This is what he said to me, and that line came to my head like very clearly when I started working, because I think whatever you do, you have to fall in love. It's not about passion. It's just you have to look at all the possibilities. How are you going to put up the work? How are you going to frame it? How every technical side of whatever you do, even you're a writer, even you're anything, because you need to understand, like you from the scratch till the end. Because I have people working for me, because I'm not a madman sitting in my studio for months and creating one work. So the thing is, like, I'm visiting those spaces again and again where I've exhibited before, because you always learn. First, the most important thing, what I keep to myself every day, I say to every day to myself, you are learning. You are learning. This is the 5 times I say it to myself every day. You are here to learn. You are here to learn. So I think this is the point. So this is the reason I said to you about my first book. Like, you were in my studio while you were, you should sharing that experience, because you were asking questions to the person who was making canvas for me, and he was telling you about, okay, Waqas Sahab ne ye kaam us waqt kiya. Waqas Sahab, so this is the point. You can learn from anybody. Please, be open. Let people talk to you. Let people talk to you. Let people have you. Let them share your idea. There's no intellectual debate over a jargon of words. No. Just say it. However you feel it, just say it. I'm still saying it. I'm still confidently saying that I'm still learning, and I need to learn about this, my practice still. I need to know so many things. So you just have to be confident enough to yourself that you can say it. That's it. That's it.
Thank you, Waqas. Jonathan, see, not everyone gets to kind of create that kind of magical sensation that is evident in Waqas's work. So what would you say to students who are kind of aspiring artists?
Well,
they shouldn't try.
No. Well, obviously, don't try and imitate it. That would be. You have to find your way. I can only give cliches. Find your own way. However, I certainly think Waqas is a good model to take in many ways, as somebody who has a vision and sticks to it, and he's a very nice guy. He's a very charming and charismatic character who can communicate his vision, to everyone he meets as well, which is, obviously an asset. I think that, and the way that, the thing about him, it's pretty. I like the intensity. I like the idea of, an artist who sits in his studio for months and months producing things. But of course, he's also somebody who goes around who shows his work at art fairs, biennales, events, which I don't particularly enjoy myself. But in a way, I have to sort of kick myself and remember, wow, it's extraordinary that, I believe the Dubai Art Fair was quite important for you.
Yes, I started from there.
So Dubai, and then, and shows every year at Frieze, and, it's the best, I go to Frieze with a sort of hair, I don't really like it very much, it's this kind of big supermarket, and it's sort of everything I really hate about the art world. But then Waqas drags me there to see this, and I think, wow, fantastic, it's a fantastic, visionary, everything that I could want from art is in this, what he does, and yet he is able to actually. So actually, he's somebody who's able to not only work like sort of a tradition, as if he was in a different time, but he's also very good at living in this time and in this world of ours and in this kind of globalized world. And that's, so I don't know what that combination is of being able to be simultaneously very passionate and intense, and also having a kind of being able to move in the world and to get on with lots of different people and go to lots of different places. So that combination is a very healthy one.
And also the way he kind of plays and cashes on his candor, and his I think his personality, his personal charm really kind of does it for him.
Okay, now we're talking about that.
Yeah. Just a while back, we were giving Jonathan a tour at the National College of Arts, and everyone seeing Waqas just opened the gates. So yeah, I think that does matter. So we would end the talk here and open the floor for a few questions. Thank you very much for being a very, very receptive audience. We'll take a few questions. Yeah. Do we have the mic?
Well, you can ask it. I can hear you.
We do have a.
Yeah.
No, but I think it's good that we.
Sorry.
We can use the mic.
No.
Waqas, you have taken art to a different level, and I strongly believe that. There are a lot of talented artists here in Pakistan, okay? Now, why they have to be established and make a name abroad first, and then be recognized in this country? That's my question. And that's always been my question. If you don't answer, you have answered my question.
Yeah. I think now things are changing. I believe now, because now we have more events happening in Pakistan. Like we started this Lahore Biennial now. So there are more people coming in now. So I think there's going to be a bright future for the young ones and even the established artists. Yeah. This is my belief.
Yeah. Jonathan, that is a very, very important question. How important do you think is international validation and institutional patronage? How important do you think it is?
I think it might be
to be successful, to be a successful artist.
I mean, it might be a universal story that I remember in the 1990s going and to interview Scottish artist Douglas Gordon. I think it was after he'd won the Turner Prize in Glasgow, where he's from, and it turned out, it turned into a bit of a kind of a very intense evening because his girlfriend had just left him, and so he was crying, But anyway, at that time in Glasgow, when artists like Douglas Gordon were winning the Turner Prize, they were completely unheard of in Scotland, and only later, now Scotland is very proud of its modern art scene, contemporary art scene, and it's almost too proud of it now. But it's become part of modern Scottish identity. So I think it might be a possibly a universal thing. I mean, I even remember reading Pierre Daix's biography of Picasso and saying, listing the various works, why the Demoiselle d'Avignon wasn't bought by the French, because the French didn't appreciate Picasso enough in the 1930s, and it ended up in New York. So it seems to be a thing that people do need that, and that's the only way I can answer it.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Yes, we had more questions. G.
Thank you. I've known Waqas now for around, how long has it been? 18, 19 years?
Yes.
Yes.
Please, no other story.
No. I'm not going to give you any stories. There are lots of stories other than the one Waqas has shared, obviously. But one thing I'd like to, this is more of a comment than a question. I've seen him work for the last 19 years, and yes, NCA, etc. But once he graduated, the passion that he found, the conviction that he's worked with, the support system, the questions that you asked, there wasn't much of it to begin with. It was his friends, it was his family, to the point where, you know, he was just like, please come see my work. What am I doing? Am I doing it right?
Yeah.
And it was amazing. He did not need our validation because the passion came out on those gigantic sheets and canvases that he was working with. And I'm so proud of him and the place where he's in right now, that he's gained this international recognition. And you're awesome, Waqas Khan. That's all I have to say.
That is why he's here.
Yeah, but at the same time, the biggest support for him, I feel, at this stage is his passion. It's his conviction, and it speaks out. And his wife, Bushra, who's sitting in front, also,
Hello.
I believe. It's amazing. Congratulations, Waqas. We're really proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello.
So
Hello.
we have another question here.
Can I?
Right here.
Ajit.
Right here. Hello. My question is directed towards Waqas. How do you think a culture context lies within your work?
If you look at the work, I sometimes feel like because if you look at, there's a certain traditional histories we have, like textiles. I look at the work in the reference of the textiles sometimes, because we used to, like, this part of the world used to be we were really good in that. So maybe it's in our region, this thing, it was about the textile. So this is the only context I feel it here, myself, with the reference of the word. Yeah. 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 That's it. I'm not going to put a whole story.
Why don't you just speak up?
Of course.
Because you do all these little dots, and then you create this bigger picture. Do you ever realize that you've gone wrong and you have to start over?
First of all, I don't work with one hand, I work with both hands. It's just, yeah. So it's like holding the pen in one hand and holding the tip of the other hand's fingers. It go exactly at the same mark like this. It's like knitting. That's why I give you the reference of the textile. So I reply in a very witty way when somebody asks me about this mistake. So I reply like, well, you breathing in and breathing out, what happens? You die. There's no mistakes. It has to be in a rhythm. I have to put myself in a certain rhythm first. There should be a certain rhythm first in my breathing position and everything, my postures and everything. And the inks and the material I'm using is permanent. I cannot make even mistake. That's another thing. So there's no chances of errors. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, please.
Yes, Waqas. First of all, congratulations on all your success and continued success, inshallah. I actually wanted to thank the moderator for bringing up sort of NCA and all the struggles and all that again and again, because I think Pakistan really needs to, I mean, we have so many eminent professors and the art community is here and all, and I think it's really important for Pakistan and the youngsters here to break away from this grip that exists over here, that you have to graduate from a certain college, or you have to learn from certain professors, or you have to get a certain training and kind of follow a certain path and so on to, and you follow a certain tradition. Yes, learn from the best, learn the best techniques, grow from that, but really you're very young, you know, understand that you're young, that it's not about selling your art as soon as you graduate, or these people who hoard your work. The minute you graduate, people come and buy up all your art from your thesis shows and so on. Frankly, I've moved to Pakistan 4 years ago, and I've not gone to any thesis shows. I don't pick up anything anymore. I haven't even bought any art since I've moved here, because I find it really very sad, this new tendency there is over here of kind of pretending that young students are, or young graduates are suddenly like these young stars and money-making machines and so on. And I think it's wonderful to actually point out I found it a bit strange, the question, but I think it's a beautiful question now that you think about it, that thank you for showing all these youngsters who probably don't have the opportunity to go to colleges like NCA and so on, that you really don't need to. You can come. Frankly, I am an employer. I
Yeah.
employ, and we only now have started employing girls, young girls from all kinds of creative colleges, Punjab College, and so on. I mean, the talent that exists in Pakistan is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And they need to know that, a lot of successful lawyers, the best of judges and so on, or doctors and so on, only know that they want to be that or so on much later in life, and really find their passion also in the direction and so on much later in life. So it's not about how did you do in school,
Yeah.
or what did you do in college, or how successful were you? And I'm so glad that you are the poster child for that. And thank you, and continue to shine and be yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Ji. Ji.
Wait for them. Can you wait for the mic?
What I've experienced with your work is that it becomes very mystical.
Ji.
And that has been confirmed by Mr. Adler here. How does it feel to be doing work and then you find that actually it's so internalized and it's so part of the way you must have grown up, and we all have somewhere that region where, the dot exists and becomes a whole, which you've expressed in your work. How has that affected you? Was it just instinct, as you say, or was it really something much deeper than that?
Thank you. This is a really good. Actually, this work literally tamed me. Yeah, I've become a. Look at me, I'm huge. I was like huge man holding that little pen. This work literally tamed me to actually started living the life after this work. The relationship, the sense of community, the sense of my surroundings, it all started after these works. It actually changed me. Yeah, because my teachers are sitting here. They have seen me how I was before. With the start of this work, like I said before, I don't know, this something happened. I cannot express what happened, but it just took everything from me. Like I just fall in love. The best time is my life is while I'm in the studio. I've become the best human being, like who's sitting in the studio. My wife can tell you better all these things, because it's given me so much. And from this process of doing it, I learned so much. While I was doing it, and it's like a month's job, like while I was doing it, I'm thinking of the space I'm going to exhibit. I'm thinking of everything. So all the calculations are adding all the time. So during this process, and it's still continuing, and I'm learning from it, and I'm loving it. This really changed me. I feel so good now. I don't know if कि मैं क्या करूँगा अब. ये नहीं कि मुझे नहीं समझ आता अब और कुछ भी. Yeah. Otherwise, my life is like I'm the only one who's in my family who's in the art world. अभी तक मेरे माँ बाप को ये भी नहीं पता मैं करता क्या हूँ. मैंने माँ जी को बोला कि आ जाए मेरी तो कहने उत्थे पुत्र इंग्लिश बोलेंगे मैं की करना आगे. So this is how my life is right now. So and I'm very connected. Yeah, I'm very connected to my village. I have a studio in my village. Weekends, me and my wife and my kids, we go to my village studio, and so it's very organic. So I'm more connected to my roots now. So this is what happens with me. Yeah. Okay. So is there another session? Okay.
Do we have time?
Can you text?
Do we have time? We're really sorry. We're running out of time.
Yeah.
I can see a couple of more hands, but I'm really sorry. Guys, thank you so much. It was great having you.
Can I say something?
Waqas, thank you so much. Jonathan, it was great having you. He came in on a 24-hour visit. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.